Hello, and welcome to Stories from India, a podcast where we talk about myths, legends, and folk tales from India. I am your host, Narada Muni, and I'm a mythological character myself. I have the gift of eternal life and knowledge of the past, the present, and the future. By profession, I'm a traveling musician and a storyteller. So, the way I'm doing my job is by podcast. In this episode, we are continuing the story of Shantanu and Ganga from the Mahabharata. If you haven't heard the previous episode, it's a good idea to do that. But if not, here's a short summary. At a party for the gods, King Mahabhisha didn't follow social and moral protocol. He got punished for it by having to lead the life of emperor of much of ancient India. That may not seem to be a terrible punishment, but listen on and judge for yourself. He was born as Prince Shantanu, and he retained no memory of his past life. That's why he had no knowledge of Ganga, the personification of the holy river. She had been a willing partner in his crime, in his past life, and had suffered the same curse. But she was a goddess, and she was the daughter of the one who cursed them both. So the curse worked a little bit differently on her. It wasn't that she had to lead a completely new life. It's just that she was forced to spend a bit more time on Earth than she had planned. Oh, and in case I forgot to mention, Ganga is my sister. Because Brahma, the creator of the universe, and the one who cursed her, is my dad. Where we left off was that Shantanu had just run into Ganga by the banks of the Ganga. Shantanu's father, who had the pleasure of meeting Ganga in his youth, had urged Shantanu to blindly accept any condition that any beautiful girl on the river bank imposed on him, including marriage. "Hi, I'm Ganga," my sister said, as she held out her hand. As skeptical as Shantanu had been about his dying father's wish, he was definitely now inclined to obey him. He had fallen for Ganga at first sight. At least, he had no recollection of his past life, so he thought it was first sight. In an instant, he made his decision. He took her hand and immediately got into wooing mode. "Charmed. I'm Emperor Shantanu, King of India. Say, you say your name is Ganga, and you're standing next to the Ganga. Isn't that a coincidence? And did I mention I was Emperor of all of India? I was also featured on the cover of both Royal India Today and Society magazines, 3 months in a row." "I know," said Ganga calmly. "And it's not really a coincidence," she added, but did not elaborate. Shantanu continued, "Say, I have a chariot waiting nearby. How about we go to a drive-in theater tonight? I know where they serve the best food. We could do dinner afterwards." My, quite a hurry we seem to be in, don't we? I mean, we just met right now," said Ganga. "It's weird you should say that," said Shantanu. "I could swear we have met before. It seems to me my entire life I've been waiting for this moment to ask you. for your hand in marriage. Dinner and a movie will be just fine, thank you, said Ganga. Despite her initial cautious approach, it was not long before Shantanu again popped the question. Ganga was suddenly serious this time, and she took her time to answer. I have a condition. Just one, she said. You name it. Anything, said Shantanu. Careful, don't overcome it. Haven't you learned anything from Kaikeyi and Dasharath's experience? Asked Ganga. Kaikeyi? Dasharath? Who are they? Asked Shantanu. Episode 30 on my brother's podcast, said Ganga. Haven't heard that one yet, said Shantanu. I'm lagging a bit. Administrative duties keep me occupied. Regardless, I'm not overcommitting. I know I can keep my word. All right then. Here's my condition, said Ganga. You can never ever question me or object to any of my actions. The moment you do, I'm going to leave you forever. Why did you even think I need such a condition? Is what I would have asked you if I meant to question your action, which I don't. So I won't. I'm totally on board. I accept your condition. Let's do this, said Shantanu. Nice recovery, said Ganga. Let's see how long you can keep this going. Turns out, Shantanu could keep it going for a while. Things were fine between the couple. They had a grand honeymoon, and Shantanu felt he had truly discovered the secret of a happy marriage. When everything his wife did was acceptable to him as canon, there were no arguments between the happy couple at all. Months passed, and Shantanu had developed the art of not challenging his wife. He just simply didn't question her anymore. He never asked her why she hadn't washed the last plate in the sink, or why she had used his credit card on her last shopping trip. But things were about to take a much more dramatic turn. This happened when Shantanu and Ganga's first son was born. Shantanu was on cloud 9. He was thrilled and excited to see his baby. But then he noticed that Ganga, who had just gotten through a long pregnancy, was already out of bed and heading for the river. The same river that was also called Ganga. And she had her baby with her. What was going on here? He thought. He rushed to the scene just in time to see Ganga drowning their child in the river. Shantanu was dumbfounded, but he could not even lift a finger. Because a promise is a promise. And to make matters worse, Ganga saw him and just gave him a pleasant smile. Nice weather we are having, she said. Shantanu was deeply disappointed, but he had to hide it from the one person who was supposed to be his shoulder to weep on. It was painful, but he decided to move on. It was therefore a shock to him when Ganga did exactly the same thing with their second baby, the moment it was born. And then, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh. Shantanu, meanwhile, had finally caught up on episode 30, and he saw the parallel with Kaikeyi and Dasharath. He cursed himself for not having understood earlier. But he told himself, you know, in most stories, 7 is a special number. There's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. There were 7 queens in other episodes, including Astro Boy and in Hurry Potbreaker. That's exactly what will happen here, he thought. That must mean my next baby does not get the same treatment. He tried to convince himself with that argument. But a tiny part of his brain told him he had felt exactly like this, even for baby number 4 and baby number 6, because the numbers 3 and 5 were similarly special. Well, it was that moment again. Baby number 8 was born. Half-heartedly, Shantanu slipped on his walking shoes and headed towards the river where Ganga would take the baby. He wanted to at least glance at his child, even if from a distance. In his dazed and confused state, he tripped over a rock and fell down. Instantly, his despair turned into anger. First, he cursed the rock he had tripped over, and then cursed his fate, and then cursed Ganga's actions. How dare she do this to her children? So when Ganga arrived at the scene, the 8th baby in her arms, he spoke his mind. He said everything he had meant to say and asked everything he had meant to ask from the moment the first baby had been born. Why? Why was she doing this to their own children? And what was the meaning of all this? And why couldn't he even ask her why? And why did she put spinach in everything she cooked? That last cake she baked was horrible. Ganga was calm as she heard Shantanu, just as cool as her waters near the Himalayas. Of course, I can explain everything, Shantanu. First of all, I am Ganga. I know that, replied Shantanu, just like this river. I am the river, Shantanu. I am Ganga. Shantanu was stunned. Ganga proceeded to explain the incident in heaven, with him in his past life as Mahabhisha. But then, why not just tell me? He asked her. I would have willingly cooperated. And why drown these babies? What had they got to do with it? No, Shantanu, you would not have willingly cooperated. And those babies, they are the 8 Vasus, the elementals. The ones in the next Marvel movie? No, you're thinking of the Celestials. These are elementals: earth, fire, wind, ether, sun, moon, sky, and the motionless. They were cursed by Rishi Vashisht. They were hanging out one day in the forest and saw a cow. They liked her, and no one else seemed to be around, so they simply took her. Only Vashisht found out that they had done that. It was his cow. So he cursed them to be born on earth. The Vasus appealed to me, and I agreed to bear them and to give them a quick passage back to their regular shape. Except this 8th baby, Devavrat. Why not? Asked Shantanu. What stops you from sending this elemental back? Well, you did. Don't ask me to explain all the physics here. I don't know. I just know that now that we have discussed all this, even if I tried the same fate as his brothers, it will not work. Let's you and I raise him then, Ganga. No, Shantanu. You've broken a promise. There must be consequences. I cannot be with you ever again. And as for this baby, I must take him with me. The best I can do is to promise you that one day I'll bring him back to you. Reminded like that of the promise he had broken, which was an absolute no-no for anyone, most of all a king, Shantanu could only hang his head in shame. If he had just kept his big mouth shut, maybe the 8th Vasu would have been freed, and they would be free to live their lives. But on the other hand, he was now going to get a prince. When? He asked. But he was shocked to see Ganga walking off into the river, baby in hand. Hey, wait! What are you doing? How'll he breathe in the water? Ganga rolled her eyes. Haven't you been paying any attention to what I said? I am Ganga. I am the river. I can protect him if I'm with him. I promise to give him back to you, and you will get him back. It was easier with the condition. At least you wouldn't ask such a silly question. With that parting shot, Ganga disappeared from Shantanu's life. Just like that. She had not mentioned to Shantanu when she would return. And that became a problem. Because without an ETA, Shantanu spent every evening after that at the Ganga riverbank, rain or shine. And he did this for years, which can't have been very good for the kingdom. That's all for now. We'll leave Shantanu there waiting at the riverbank. We'll come back to the Mahabharata, but in a subsequent episode. In the next episode, we'll switch gears a little bit as we cover yet another Tenali Raman story. If you have comments or suggestions, or if there are particular stories you'd like to hear, please do let me know by leaving a comment or a review on the site sfipodcast.com or tweet at sfipodcast. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook. Be sure to subscribe to the show to get notified automatically of new episodes. Thanks to all of you listeners for your continued support and your feedback. The music is from purpleplanet.com. That's purple-planet.com. I'll see you next time.